Belle was an anime film that came out in 2021 from director Mamoru Hosoda, and was inspired heavily by Disney's Beauty and the Beast, as well as maybe taking influence from other relevant stories. It tells the story of Suzu, a shy teenage girl who is very depressed after her mother, years ago, gave her life to save another child from a flooding river. So now she turns to this new interactive app called You, where she develops a new identity as a pop singer and gains a large following, until she discovers a new mysterious dragon character just called the Beast, and she desperately tries to get to know him and possibly save him from whatever turmoil he might be facing. The reception it got ranged from mostly positive to some mixed reviews, and while it may not be the most original story ever told, it is definitely one of the most spectacular and creative ways of telling it. Whenever I watch the film, I sometimes feel like I could watch the whole thing on mute and still enjoy it, from the amazing landscaped paintings to the dazzling spectacle to the raw emotion displayed on screen. The film has a very quiet nature to it, yet also very expressive with all its imagery. Right now, I'm here to discuss this movie through the three main themes it presents and why, even with its mostly positive reception, it's still an underrated gem. So the consensus amongst most critics and audiences is that the movie starts out being about Suzu struggling on her own and finding who she really is. But then halfway through, the Beast suddenly shows up and practically hijacks the movie, in which it becomes sort of a Beauty and the Beast carbon copy. While this assessment is technically not wrong, I also feel like anyone criticizing it for this misses the point. At the beginning of the film, when she goes into her own backstory, we see her happy life with her mother, only for her to suddenly be devastated with her mother leaving her to go save another child across a river and never see her again. From then on, she becomes broken, having felt like her mother just left her for some other girl they don't even know, and questions why she would do such a thing. After she becomes Belle in the world of You, the dragon suddenly interrupts one of her performances and she has a mysterious interest in him. It's at this point that she starts to become her mother. Because why are we compassionate? Why do we feel the need to help others? Is it because we as humans just have some selfless nature? It's like some kind of magnetism that draws us to resolve things for those who may be suffering. Suzu sees this stranger who's clearly suffering and feels this innate desire to help him without even understanding why. In fact, she's the only one. One of the film's messages is clearly about social media and how overly critical others can be with it, especially in judging a person or situation from the outside looking in. In other words, everyone else seems to have a lack of compassion.
In these very self-obsessed times, it's often difficult to remember how important it is for us to not only connect with other people, but to really understand where they are coming from. Compassion is that feeling that arises when we notice someone else suffering and we want to do something about it. In fact, the literal definition of the word compassion is suffering together. It's more of an understanding of someone else's perspective, which I think is oftentimes missing from our world today. Lack of compassion often comes from judgment. So the first place we have to look is within ourselves, because we are just as likely to judge ourselves as we are to judge other people. So if we notice that we are judgmental and critical of our own selves, it is very likely that we are judgmental and critical of other people, which certainly makes it very difficult for us to be compassionate.
When it's revealed who the Dragon Beast really is and the tragic home situation he's in, others on the platform are quick to ridicule it, but Suzu is the only one who seems to genuinely want to help. First, she sings to him as her true self. She eventually has a flashback of her mother saving the other child again. It's at that moment that she finally understands and comes to terms with her mother's choice that day, to help someone she doesn't even know at her own expense, directly mirroring Suzu's situation. She finally forgives her and for the first time feels a sense to move on with her life. Then she goes so far as to travel all the way to the kid's home to help him and his brother. This may be a bit of a stretch, but the way I interpret this scene is that when we see the river that her mother runs into, it's all dark and looks a bit scary, maybe because she's still a child and we're seeing it through her eyes. Towards the end, when she stands up to the father, This is her facing fear itself. She looks him right in the eye and eventually makes him cower. She's the hero that her mother was, and she has a strength she never knew she had. Probably the easiest subject to talk about with this movie is identity. In the real world, Suzu has lost her singing voice, which is an allegory for her having lost her true self, which is why she's very shy and reserved. The world of You is basically an entire world unto itself. People are essentially reborn inside of it, where they can create new faces, new bodies, and new identities. When Suzu becomes Belle, she becomes a reflection of who she is deep inside, a beautiful freckled princess with a soulful voice that carries throughout the entire You-verse. The world of You makes people think that they could be anything they want, but all of this seems to just conceal the truth. It's not real. A mask is still a mask. It's a disguise. In other words, it's a lie. In the middle, people try to search for who the Beast really is, to search for his true identity. But the only identifying mark he has on him is the tattooed bruises Suzu notices on him. Even in a virtual world, some can't hide their scars, because they're part of them. However, she also sees into his heart after he rescues her from the Justices. In this way, she sees into him, his true self, his identity. He's a lost soul who needs saving.
I think that I know you a little better now. This is where it really hurts, isn't it?
Thus is how she's able to recognize him towards the end. When Suzu makes the brave choice of letting Justin use his light on her to reveal her true identity, that's when she finally rips off the mask and shows who she really is deep down, risking everything to reach out to someone, to let them know that she cares and that she's there for them. All they have to do is reach back. Despite all the obvious parallels to Beauty and the Beast, this movie is not a love story, but rather a story about mothering. Suzu feels lost after the death of her mother. Since then, her friend Shinobu starts looking after her more. You could make the claim that he clearly really likes her, but later on, her other friend Ruka tells her that it reminds her of mothering.
I've often thought that the way he's constantly watching over you and worrying about you is like mothering. You think?
And that's exactly what Suzu becomes in many ways. When Ruka and Kamishin both find out they have feelings for each other, Suzu guides them like a parent and gets them to bravely confess. The moments she has with the Beast are very romantic, and even the music she sings to him is very passionate, but she more rather becomes a motherly figure to the dragon. She sings to him as if lulling a child. She holds him in a very nurturing way. She stands up to their father like a mother protecting her children. When the mothers of the choir tease Suzu about being in love, one of them tells a story about a boy she wrote a song for.
That's right, a song. I wrote him a song and then I sang it to him. He told me it made him happy.
Did you guys go out?
No.
Why not?
He was still in 8th grade.
This actually parallels Suzu with the Beast being more of a motherly figure than a love interest. One complaint the film has gotten from critics and audiences is that it's too unclear what happens to Kai and his brother after the final confrontation. But I think it's made clear that the father is basically shown a mirror to himself and what he's been doing to his children. Earlier, he was putting on a facade about dealing with the death of his wife, saying that it's been hard, but they're getting through it. But later, we see who the real monster of the story really is. He's used to scaring them to get what he wants, and the monster inside him is essentially defeated when he doesn't get that with Suzu. Just like her, he was wearing a disguise to get people to see him the way he wants to. But she helps him to see himself for who he is and what he's doing. She even inspired Kai to stand up for himself after seeing the strength that she inspires as a motherly figure. Because what I think is, we don't need to see what happens to them after all. We already get the sense that things will resolve themselves after the major difference that Suzu has made. To quote the website for the American College of Pediatricians, Mothers are a powerful influence for good, a strength and bulwark for society. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe to my channel for more. Also, be sure to follow me on all my social media stuff and hit that notification bell for recent updates.